In the last episode, the remnants of humanity struggled to find a foothold in a desolate galaxy, their existence threatened by environmental disaster and societal collapse. Yet amidst the ruins, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of Ambrose Wynter, a visionary entrepreneur with a charisma that inspired and a mind that innovated. As I stood on the precipice of a new era, gazing out at the devastated landscape of our once thriving planet, the weight of responsibility settled heavy on my shoulders. The echoes of a bygone era whispered through the desolate streets, a haunting reminder of what we'd lost. The acrid smell of smoke and ash still lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the wars that had ravaged our world. I took a deep breath, the cool morning air filling my lungs, and began my walk through the makeshift camp that had become our temporary home. The sounds of murmured conversations, the clanging of makeshift tools, and the hum of improvised machinery created a symphony of resilience. These were the people I'd sworn to help, to guide towards a brighter future. My mind wandered back to the journey that had brought me here, from the ashes of a failed business empire to the forging of unlikely alliances with the marginalized species that inhabited this broken world. It was a path fraught with peril, but also filled with opportunity. I'd met Kale, a grizzled engineer with a talent for innovation in one of the early makeshift settlements. Had become more than just a colleague, had become a friend, a confidant in the truest sense. Ambrose, I thought to myself, you've come a long way from the ambitious entrepreneur, always chasing the next big deal. Now I was driven by something more profound, a desire to leave a lasting legacy, to ensure that humanity didn't just survive but thrived. The walkway beneath my feet gave way to a more substantial structure, the beginnings of what would become our first permanent settlement. The blueprint for this new society was being written in real time, with every decision, every alliance, and every innovation. There was still much to be done, but for the first time in years, I felt a sense of hope. As I reached the edge of the settlement, I was met with the sight of alien ships, their unusual designs a testament to the alliances we'd forged. These weren't just vessels, they were harbingers of a new era, one where humanity would take its place among the stars. The hum of engines, the chatter of alien languages, and the murmur of my own crew created a cacophony of sound that was both chaotic and beautiful. This was it, the moment I'd been working towards, the moment humanity would take its first steps into the galaxy. The air was charged with an electric sense of possibility as I turned to face Kale, who was watching me with a mixture of concern and anticipation. Ambrose, we've got a situation, he said, his voice low and urgent. What is it? I asked, my heart rate quickening. It's an envoy from the Zeridian Empire, he replied, his eyes scanning the surrounding area as if searching for unwanted listeners. They're offering us a deal, one that could change everything. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The Zeridian Empire was a name that commanded respect. Their reach across the galaxy was vast, and their influence unmatched. What kind of deal? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. They want to trade technology for resources, Kale explained, his tone measured. It sounds straightforward, but there's more to it. They're asking for access to our planet's core, something they claim will accelerate their own sustainable energy project. Suspicion crept into my thoughts, a natural response given the politics of the galaxy. Everyone had an angle, and I had a feeling the Zeridians were no exception. I want to hear it from their own mouth, I said finally, making my decision. Set up a meeting, Kale. Let's hear what they have to propose. The hours passed in a blur of preparation, my mind racing with scenarios, each one more complex than the last. As I stood to greet the Zeridian envoy, I couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The air was thick with tension as I extended my hand, a gesture of peace and openness. The envoy's response was a calculated smile, one that spoke volumes about the delicate dance we were about to engage in. Greetings, Ambrose Wynter, the envoy said, his voice smooth as silk. I come bearing a proposal, one that could forge a lasting bond between our peoples. As I listened, a plan began to form. The Zeridians offered advanced technology, a gift that could catapult humanity into the modern age, but at a price. Access to our planet's core was a steep cost, one that raised questions about our very survival. Intrigued, I said finally, choosing my words with care. I'll need to discuss this with my advisors, but tell me, what makes you think we'd be interested in such a deal? The envoy's smile deepened, a hint of triumph flickering in his eyes. Because, Ambrose Wynter, we believe humanity has potential. We want to help you unlock it. The words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise. In that moment, I knew the course of history was about to shift and I was about to become its architect. With a deep breath, I made my decision. Let's talk, I said, extending my hand once more. The journey ahead would be fraught with peril, but I was ready. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of purpose, a sense that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As I looked out at the gathering crowd, a mixture of humans and alien species, all united in their quest for a better future, I knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was no longer alone. I had allies, friends, and a vision for a brighter tomorrow. The stars beckoned, a siren's call to adventure and discovery. And I was ready to answer the weight of the envoy's words hung in the air, a tantalizing promise of a brighter future. I knew that this was just the beginning of a complex dance, one that would require all my cunning and charisma to navigate. As the meeting concluded, I turned to Kale, my eyes locked on his. Get me everything you can on the Zeridian Empire, I said, my voice low and urgent. I want to know their true intentions, their motivations, and their weaknesses. Kale nodded, his face set in a determined expression. I'll get to work on it, Ambrose, but we need to move quickly. The Zeridians won't wait forever. I nodded, my mind racing with the implications of the deal. The promise of advanced technology was a tantalizing one, but I knew that nothing came without a cost. The Zeridians were playing a long game, and I needed to be one step ahead of them. As I walked back to my makeshift office, a hub of activity surrounded me. Humans and aliens worked together, their differences set aside in the pursuit of a common goal. I smiled, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. This was what humanity was capable of: adaptation, innovation, and progress. The sound of footsteps behind me interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see Akira, a member of the KTKTK species, approaching me. Her mandibles clicked in a rhythmic pattern, a sign of excitement or urgency. Ambrose, I've made a discovery, she said, her voice low and gravelly. The Zeridian's technology is more advanced than we thought. I've detected energy signatures that suggest they are capable of harnessing the power of entire stars. My eyes widened, the implications staggering. That changes everything, I said, my mind racing with the possibilities. Get me all the data you can, Akira. I need to know what we're up against. As Akira nodded and scurried off, I felt a sense of trepidation creeping in. The Zeridians were more powerful than I had initially thought, and I knew that our decision would have far-reaching consequences. I turned to face Kale, who was watching me with a mixture of concern and anticipation. We need to be careful, I said, my voice low and measured. The Zeridians are not to be trusted. We need to find a way to get what we want without sacrificing our integrity. Kale nodded, his eyes locked on mine. I understand, Ambrose. We'll find a way to make it work. As the sun began to set on our makeshift camp, I knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The road ahead would be fraught with peril, but I was ready. I had a vision for a brighter tomorrow, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make it a reality. The stars beckoned, a siren's call to adventure and discovery. And I was ready to answer, no matter the cost. The weight of my words hung in the air, a promise of caution in the face of uncertainty. Kale's eyes never wavered, his determination a beacon of hope in the shadows of doubt. As the night wore on, the camp fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of machinery and the soft murmurs of alien languages. I walked the perimeter, my footsteps quiet on the dusty ground, my mind racing with the implications of our deal. The Zeridians had promised us the stars, but at what cost? Their technology was advanced, perhaps even godlike, but I knew that such power came with a price. The question was, what were they willing to pay for our loyalty? I stopped at the edge of the camp, gazing up at the star-filled sky. The Zeridian Empire stretched out before us, a vast expanse of unknowns, waiting to be explored. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a thrill of excitement mingling with fear. Ambrose, a voice whispered behind me. I turned to see Akira, her mandibles clicking softly in the darkness. "What is it?" I asked, my voice low. "I've found something," she said, her eyes glinting with excitement. "A transmission, hidden deep within the Zeridian's communication networks. It's encrypted, but I think I can crack the code." My heart quickened, a sense of anticipation building within me. "What does it say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Akira's expression turned grave. "It's a warning, Ambrose, a warning from an unknown source. They speak of a great betrayal, one that will shake the foundations of the galaxy." I felt a chill run down my spine, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "Play it," I said, my voice firm. Akira nodded, her claws clicking as she worked the console. The air was silent for a moment, and then a voice, distorted and gravelly, spoken in a language I didn't understand. But I didn't need to understand the words to know the tone. Fear, desperation, and a warning that echoed through the void. I turned to Akira, my eyes locked on hers. "We need to know more," I said, my voice low and urgent. "Find out who sent this message and what they are trying to tell us." Akira nodded, her mandibles clicking in agreement. "I'll get to work on it, Ambrose, but we need to be quick. If the Zeridians find out we're digging into their secrets, they'll not hesitate to strike." I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. The game was afoot and I was ready to play. The fate of humanity hung in the balance and I was determined to come out on top. But as I walked back to my makeshift office, the darkness seemed to press in around me, the stars above twinkling like cold, dead eyes. I knew that I was walking a thin line, one misstep away from disaster, and yet I couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. The unknown was calling, and I was ready to answer. I sat at my desk, the holographic display flickering in front of me as Akira worked her magic on the encrypted transmission. The room was dimly lit, the only sound the soft hum of machinery and the occasional clicking of Akira's claws. "What have you got?" I asked, my voice low and urgent. Akira's mandibles clicked as she worked the console. "It's a tough one, Ambrose. The encryption is advanced, but I'm making progress." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the holographic display. The words began to take shape, the distortion clearing as Akira's code-breaking skills worked their magic. "Warning to all who would listen. The Zeridians are not what they seem. Their technology is built on lies and deceit." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I knew that the Zeridians were advanced, but deceit, that was a new level of complexity. The Empire is built on a foundation of corruption and greed. They will stop at nothing to maintain their power. I felt a growing sense of unease. If the Zeridians were corrupt, what did that mean for our alliance? Were they using us for their own gain? "A traitor in your midst, one who will bring about your downfall." The words seemed to hang in the air, a warning that sent a chill down my spine. A traitor? Who could it be? Kale? Akira? One of the humans? I turned to Akira, my eyes locked on hers. "Get me more," I said, my voice firm. "I need to know who sent this message and what they are trying to tell us." Akira nodded, her claws clicking as she worked the console. I watched as she worked, my mind racing with the implications. Suddenly, the console beeped and a new message flashed on the screen. "Meet me on the planet of Nexaroman 4. Come alone. I will reveal the truth." I felt a sense of excitement mixed with fear. Who was behind the message and what did they want to reveal? I turned to Akira, my eyes locked on hers. "I need to go," I said, my voice firm. "I need to know what's going on." Akira's expression was grave. "Ambrose, I don't think that's a good idea. It could be a trap." I nodded, my mind racing with the possibilities. But I knew that I had to take the risk. The fate of humanity hung in the balance and I was the only one who could uncover the truth. "I'll be careful," I said, my voice low. but I need to know what's going on. Prepare a ship and get me the coordinates. I'll leave at dawn." Akira nodded, her mandibles clicking in agreement. I stood, my heart pounding in my chest. The unknown was calling, and I was ready to answer. But as I walked out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. The darkness seemed to press in around me, the stars above twinkling like cold, dead eyes. I was about to take a risk that could change the course of history, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. I stood in the pre-dawn darkness, the stars above a faint twinkle as I gazed out at the horizon. The air was crisp, the chill of the night still lingering, and I could feel the weight of my own uncertainty. Akira stood beside me, her eyes fixed on the ship that loomed before us. "The coordinates are set, Ambrose," she said, her voice low. "Nexaroman 4 is a remote planet on the edge of the galaxy. Be careful." I nodded, my mind racing with the possibilities. Who was behind the message, and what did they want to reveal? Was it a trap or a genuine attempt to expose the truth? "I'll be fine, Akira," I said, my voice firm. "I'll be back soon." Akira's expression was grave, but she didn't protest. She knew that I had to take this risk, no matter how dangerous it seemed. I turned to her, my eyes locked on hers. "If anything happens, keep Kale and the others safe. They're counting on me." Akira nodded, her mandibles clicking in agreement. I turned and boarded the ship, the darkness closing in around me like a shroud. The flight to Nexaroman 4 was long and uneventful, the stars whizzing past in a blur as the ship hurtled through the void. I spent the time in contemplation, my mind racing with the possibilities. Who was behind the message, and what did they want to reveal? As the planet of Nexaroman 4 loomed before me, I felt a sense of trepidation. This was at the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The ship landed with a gentle thud, and I stepped out into the bright, warm light of the twin suns. The air was thick with an otherworldly scent, the landscape stretching out before me like an alien graveyard. I walked across the dusty plain, my boots kicking up small clouds of red dust. The silence was oppressive, the only sound the creaking of my own armor. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, gaunt, and humanoid, with skin like translucent crystal and eyes that burned like hot coals. "Ambrose Wynter," the figure said, its voice like a sigh on the wind. "I've been waiting for you." I drew my blaster, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I demanded. The figure smiled, its eyes glinting with amusement. "My name is Lyra," it said, "and I'm here to show you the truth." I hesitated, my finger on the trigger. Something about Lyra's words sent a shiver down my spine. Was this a trap or a genuine attempt to expose the truth? "I'm listening," I said, my voice firm. Lyra nodded, its eyes fixed on mine. "Follow me," it said, "and I'll show you the secrets of the Zeridians." I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with the possibilities. But I knew that I had to take the risk. I holstered my blaster and followed Lyra into the unknown. We walked across the dusty plain, Lyra leading the way. The air was thick with an otherworldly scent, and the silence was oppressive. I could feel the weight of my own uncertainty, my mind racing with the possibilities. As we walked, the landscape shifted and changed, the red dust giving way to a vast expanse of crystalline structures. They rose from the ground like a forest of glittering spires, their facets reflecting the light of the twin suns. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is the Zeridian Archive," Lyra replied, its eyes fixed on the structures. "Here you will find the secrets of the Ancient Ones." I felt a shiver run down my spine as we approached the entrance. The air was charged with an electric tension, and I could feel the weight of history bearing down on me. We stepped inside, and Lyra led me through a labyrinth of glittering corridors. The walls were lined with ancient artifacts, relics of a civilization long gone. "This way," Lyra said, its voice low and urgent. We reached a central chamber, the walls lined with ancient computer terminals. Lyra stepped forward, its eyes fixed on a central console. "This is the heart of the archive," it said. "Here you will find the truth about the Zeridians." I approached the console, my heart pounding in my chest. Lyra's eyes were fixed on mine, its expression unreadable. Suddenly, the console flared to life, a holographic display erupting from the surface. I watched in awe as images flashed past, a history of the Zeridians unfolding before me. I saw a civilization of unparalleled power, their technology advancing at an exponential rate. I saw their colonies spread across the galaxy, their influence shaping the course of history. But I also saw their downfall, their hubris and ambition leading to catastrophic conflict. I saw the devastation of their homeworld, the remnants of their civilization fleeing into the unknown. And I saw the rise of humanity, our own civilization built on the ruins of the Zeridians. I saw our struggles and triumphs, our rise to dominance in the galaxy. The display faded, and I turned to Lyra, my mind reeling with the implications. "What does this mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's eyes were fixed on mine, its expression unreadable. "It means that humanity's rise to power was not a coincidence," it said. "It was facilitated by the Zeridians themselves, who saw in us a worthy successor to their legacy." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine. "What do you mean?" I demanded. "They engineered our evolution," Lyra replied, its voice low and urgent. "They guided our development, shaping us into the dominant force we are today." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The implications were staggering, the very fabric of our history torn apart. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because they saw in us a chance for redemption," Lyra replied. "A chance to correct the mistakes of their own past and forge a new path for the galaxy." I stood there, my mind reeling with the implications. The weight of history bore down on me, the secrets of the Zeridians threatening to consume me whole. And then, Lyra's expression changed, its eyes flashing with a malevolent intent. "But that's not the only secret I have to reveal," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "There's something else, something that will change the course of history forever." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine, my heart pounding in my chest. What other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be revealed? "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's eyes seemed to gleam with a sinister light, its expression twisted into a cruel smile. "The Zeridians didn't just guide human evolution," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "They also created a failsafe, a mechanism to ensure that humanity would never surpass their own achievements." I felt a chill run down my spine as Lyra's words hung in the air. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my mind racing with the implications. "They created a genetic marker," Lyra replied, its voice low and urgent. "A code embedded in human DNA designed to limit our potential, to keep us from becoming too powerful, too ambitious." I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the weight of Lyra's words crushing me. The very idea that our own evolution had been manipulated, controlled, was too much to bear. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because the Zeridians feared that humanity would repeat their own mistakes," Lyra replied, its expression twisted into a cruel smile. "They wanted to ensure that we would never surpass them, that we would always remain inferior to their own achievements." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, my mind racing with the implications. We had always thought ourselves superior, the masters of our own destiny. But it seemed we were nothing more than pawns, toys created and controlled by a superior force. "What does this mean for humanity?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's eyes seemed to gleam with a sinister light, its expression twisted into a cruel smile. "It means that humanity's rise to power was just an illusion," it said. "We were never truly in control. The Zeridians were always pulling the strings, guiding our development to suit their own purposes." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine, my heart pounding in my chest. The secrets of the Zeridians threatened to consume me whole, to destroy everything I thought I knew about humanity. And then Lyra's expression changed, its eyes flashing with a malevolent intent. "But there's more," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "There's something else, something that will change the course of history forever." I felt a wave of fear wash over me, my mind racing with the implications. What other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be revealed. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's eyes seemed to gleam with a sinister light, its expression twisted into a cruel smile. "The genetic marker," it said, its voice low and urgent. "It's not just a failsafe. It's a key to unlocking humanity's true potential." I felt a chill run down my spine as Lyra's words hung in the air. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my mind racing with the implications. "The Zeridians didn't just limit humanity's potential," Lyra replied, its voice dripping with malice. "They also gave us the power to transcend our limitations, to become something more." I felt a wave of excitement wash over me, my mind racing with the implications. Could it be true? Could we truly transcend our limitations, become something more? But as I looked into Lyra's eyes, I saw a glimmer of something else, something darker, more sinister. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's expression changed, its eyes flashing with a malevolent intent. "I want you to unlock humanity's true potential," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "I want you to fulfill the Zeridians' greatest wish." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine, my heart pounding in my chest. What did Lyra mean? What did the Zeridians truly want from humanity? And then Lyra's expression changed, its eyes flashing with a sinister light. "The choice is yours, Ambrose Wynter," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "Will you unlock humanity's true potential, or will you succumb to the limitations of your own design?" I stood there, my mind reeling with the implications, my heart pounding in my chest. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and I was the only one who could tip the scales. I felt the weight of Lyra's words bearing down on me, the fate of humanity hanging precariously in the balance. The choice seemed impossible, the consequences of either path unknown. I thought back to the struggles of the past, the sacrifices and triumphs that had brought humanity to this point. Was it all for nothing? Were we merely pawns in a game designed by a superior force? As I stood there, frozen in uncertainty, Lyra's expression changed once more. Its eyes seemed to gleam with an almost excitement. "Ah, but there is one thing more, Ambrose Wynter," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "One thing that could tip the scales in your favor." I raised an eyebrow, my curiosity piqued despite the trepidation that gripped my heart. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's smile grew wider, its eyes flashing with a sinister light. "I can show you the location of an ancient Zeridian artifact," it said, its voice low and urgent. "A relic of unimaginable power, capable of unlocking humanity's true potential." I felt a surge of hope, a spark of determination igniting within me. Could it be true? Could this artifact hold the key to our salvation? But at what cost? I asked, my voice firm despite the hesitation that lingered in my heart. Lyra's expression changed, its eyes flashing with a cold calculation. "Ah, Ambrose Wynter," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "You will soon learn that power always comes at a price. The question is, are you willing to pay it?" I stood there, my mind racing with the implications, my heart pounding in my chest. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and I was the only one who could tip the scales. I thought back to the struggles of the past, the sacrifices and triumphs that had brought humanity to this point. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. "I'll do it," I said, my voice firm, my determination unwavering. Lyra's smile grew wider, its eyes flashing with a sinister light. "Then let us begin," it said, its voice dripping with malice. And with that, our journey into the unknown began. As Lyra's words hung in the air, I felt a shiver run down my spine, the weight of my decision settling upon me like a mantle. I knew that this path would lead to consequences both unforeseen and far-reaching, but I had no choice. The fate of humanity depended on it. Lyra's eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity as it gestured toward a holo display that flickered to life before us. The image resolved into a stunning vista of crimson sand dunes stretching to the horizon, punctuated by twisted rock formations that seemed to writhe in the flickering light. "This is Zeridiroman 4, Lyra said, its voice tinged with an air of reverence. a planet scorched by the very power we seek to harness. The ancient Zeridians built their greatest temple here, a marvel of engineering and sorcery that has lain undisturbed for millennia. I felt a thrill of excitement mixed with trepidation as I gazed upon the desolate landscape. What secrets lay hidden beneath the sands, waiting to be unearthed? The artifact is hidden within the Temple of Eternity, Lyra continued, its voice dripping with an almost reverent awe. A labyrinthine structure designed to test the worthiness of those who dare to claim its power. I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. This was no trivial pursuit. The stakes were higher than ever before. "I'll need a team," I said, my voice firm. "The best humans and allies I can muster. We'll need to move quickly before rival factions catch wind of our plans." Lyra's expression turned calculating, its eyes flashing with a cold light. "I have taken the liberty of assembling a team of specialists," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "Individuals with skills tailored to the challenges that lie ahead. You will find them intriguing." I raised an eyebrow, a sense of unease growing within me. Who were these specialists and what secrets lay hidden behind Lyra's sinister smile? "Let me meet them," I said, my voice firm, my hand instinctively reaching for the holstered pistol at my side. Lyra's smile grew wider, its eyes glinting with a maddening intensity. "Ah, Ambrose Wynter," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "You will soon find that the line between ally and enemy is thin indeed." With that, the holo-display flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. When the lights flickered back to life, I found myself face to face with a group of individuals who would change the course of humanity's destiny. Forever the room fell silent as I gazed upon the assembled team, my mind racing with calculations and misgivings. Lyra's specialists were a motley crew, each one more enigmatic than the last. To my left stood a towering figure, his skin a deep shade of indigo, his eyes pools of pure black. His name was Kale, a genetically engineered warrior bred for combat and stealth. His very presence seemed to draw the air out of the room. Next to him was a petite, porcelain-skinned woman with hair as white as snow and eyes that shimmered like the stars on a clear night. Her name was Aria, a cybernetic assassin with skills that rivaled Lyra's own. Across from me, a hulking mass of muscle and machinery loomed, its body a patchwork of scavenged parts and cybernetic enhancements. This was Grax, a former scavenger who had lost his humanity in the depths of the underworld. His eyes burned with a malevolent intensity that made my skin crawl. Rounding out the group was a petite, mischievous-looking young woman with hair as bright as the sun and eyes that sparkled with reckless abandon. Her name was Zephyr, a charismatic thief and smuggler with skills that rivaled my own. As I surveyed the team, a sense of unease crept over me. These individuals were not exactly the type I would have chosen to accompany me on this perilous quest. Lyra's machinations were clear. It had assembled a team designed to test my own resolve, to push me to the limits of my cunning and leadership. "I see you've assembled a diverse team," I said, my voice dry. Lyra's smile grew wider, its eyes glinting with amusement. "Each member has skills uniquely suited to the challenges we will face on Zeridiroman 4, it said. "Together, we will overcome the temple's defenses and claim the artifact." I nodded, my mind racing with strategies and contingency plans. "Let's get to work then," I said, my voice firm. "We have no time to waste." As we set to planning, a sense of trepidation hung over us like a shroud. We were a team of misfits, united by a common goal, but torn apart by our own agendas and rivalries. I glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of each team member in turn. Kale's gaze was unreadable, areas seemed to bore into my very soul, Grax burned with a malevolent intensity, and Zephyr sparkled with mischief. Lyra's smile seemed to grow wider, its eyes glinting with an air of expectation. The game was afoot, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. I knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. For I was Ambrose Wynter, and I would stop at nothing to secure humanity's future among the stars. As we delved deeper into the temple's layout, I couldn't shake off the feeling that Lyra had orchestrated this entire operation to test my mettle. The temple's defenses were formidable, a labyrinth of traps and puzzles designed to weed out the weak. I had to think several steps ahead, anticipating every possible contingency. "All right, here's the plan," I said, outlining the route we would take. "Kale, y'all take point, using your advanced senses to detect any hidden dangers. Area, y'all provide backup, taking out any threats that slip past Kale. Grax, y'all handle the heavy lifting, using your unique abilities to bypass any physical obstacles. Zephyr, y'all scout ahead, identifying potential traps and disarming them where possible." The team nodded, each member falling into their designated role with ease. Lyra hovered at the edge of the room, its eyes watching us with an unnerving intensity. As we ventured deeper into the temple, the air grew thick with anticipation. Every step felt like a gamble, every breath a calculated risk. The temple's walls seemed to press in on us, suffocating us with their ancient, crumbling weight. The first challenge came in the form of a pressure plate, hidden beneath a layer of dust and debris. Zephyr sprang into action, her deft fingers dancing across the mechanism as she worked to disarm it. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity as we waited for the outcome. Finally, the plate clicked and the floor beneath us shuddered. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow corridor that stretched out into darkness. "Well done, Zephyr," I said, my voice low and even. "Kale, take point. Let's move out." As we advanced, the corridor twisted and turned, forcing us to adapt to each new challenge. Grax's brute strength came in handy, smashing through obstacles that would have been insurmountable for the rest of us. Aria's precision proved invaluable, taking out threats with deadly accuracy. But it was Kale who proved the true wild card. His senses picked up on subtle changes in the environment, allowing us to sidestep deadly traps and navigate the temple's treacherous layout. Despite our differences, the team began to gel, each member falling into their role with ease. Lyra's plan, it seemed, was working. We were becoming a well-oiled machine, working together to overcome the temple's defenses. But as we delved deeper into the heart of the temple, I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were mere pawns in a much larger game. The artifact, whatever its true nature, seemed to be drawing us in, exerting some kind of strange influence over us. I glanced around at my teammates, meeting their eyes in turn. Kale's gaze was unreadable. Areas seemed to hold a hint of warning. Grax burned with an intensity that made my skin crawl, and Zephyr sparkled with mischief. Lyra's smile, it seemed, had been the greatest deception of all. "What are we really after here?" I asked, my voice low and even. "What's the true nature of this artifact?" Lyra's response was immediate, its voice dripping with sincerity. "The artifact is the key to unlocking humanity's true potential," it said. "With it, we can ensure our dominance among the stars." I narrowed my eyes, my mind racing with the implications. "And what's the cost?" I asked, my voice firm. Lyra's smile grew wider, its eyes glinting with an air of expectation. "That, Ambrose, is for you to discover." I turned to face my team, my eyes locking onto each of theirs. Kale's expression remained neutral. Areas seemed to hold a hint of concern. Grax's burned with an intensity that made my skin crawl, and Zephyr's sparkled with curiosity. "What do you all think?" I asked, my voice low and even. "Do we trust Lyra's motives?" Kale spoke up first, its voice detached. "The temple's defenses are formidable, Ambrose. If Lyra's plan is to test our abilities, then we're playing into its hands." Area nodded in agreement. "I don't like it, Ambrose. There's something off about this whole operation." Grax's response was immediate. "I don't care about Lyra's motives, Ambrose. I care about getting out of here with that artifact." Zephyr's voice was laced with sarcasm. "Yeah, because that's exactly what we need. Another powerful relic in the wrong hands." I looked at Lyra, its smile still plastered on its face. "You're not helping, Lyra. Your motives are as clear as mud." Lyra's response was immediate. "I assure you, Ambrose, my intentions are pure. The artifact is the key to humanity's survival. I raised an eyebrow. Survival? You mean dominance? Lyra's smile grew wider. Semantics, Ambrose. The end result is the same. I turned to face my team once more. We need to decide what we're doing here. Do we trust Lyra or do we take matters into our own hands? The team fell silent, each member weighing their options. It was Kale who spoke up first. I say we proceed with caution, Ambrose. We can't trust Lyra, but we can't ignore the potential benefits of the artifact either. Arya nodded in agreement. I'm with Kale. We need to be careful, but we can't let fear dictate our actions. Grax's voice was immediate. I'm with Ambrose. We take the artifact and we use it to our advantage. Zephyr's response was laced with sarcasm. Yeah, because that's exactly what we need. A powerful relic in the hands of a power-hungry human. I looked at Lyra, its smile still plastered on its face. What do you say, Lyra? Are you willing to compromise? Lyra's response was immediate. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to ensure humanity's survival, Ambrose, even if it means making difficult choices. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of choices? Lyra's smile grew wider. The kind that will secure humanity's place among the stars. I turned to face my team once more. It seems we have a decision to make. Do we trust Lyra, or do we take matters into our own hands? The team fell silent, each member weighing their options. It was then that I realized we were mere pawns in a much larger game. Lyra's plan was more complex than I had initially thought, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to play along. What's the next step, Lyra? I asked, my voice firm. Lyra's response was immediate. The temple's central chamber lies ahead. The artifact awaits. I looked at my team, meeting their eyes in turn. Kale's gaze was unreadable. Arya's seemed to hold a hint of warning. Grax's burned with an intensity that made my skin crawl, and Zephyr's sparkled with mischief. It was then that I realized we were walking into a trap. Lyra's plan was more complex than I had initially thought, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to play along. But it was too late to turn back now. We had to see this through to the end. Let's move out, I said, my voice firm. The team fell into step behind me, our footsteps echoing through the temple's corridors. The air grew thick with anticipation as we approached the central chamber. What lay ahead, I had no idea, but I was ready to face it head on.